Welcome back to the Scarfey Spurs podcast. In this episode, it is your Fulham preview. Tottenham awful record at Craven Cottage in a relegation battle. I'd personally argue, if I give my personal point of view, that we're the worst side in the league right now. I heard that said in the green room. I agree with that. We've got to get our act in gear. That includes the managers, and also we all need to get behind him and the players because we need to turn this around. I'm joined by a fantastic panel this evening, so let's introduce them one by one. Wheelsy, thank you very much for joining me. How you doing?
Thank you for having me back on, Harry. Spurs aside, I'm swell. Like, I've fixed my sleep schedule. I'm getting up early, going to bed early. Life is great, but Tottenham is always the thorn in our sides that just ruins everything. But apart from that, I'm all good. Thank you.
Love it. No, you definitely have fixed your sleep schedule. I can vouch for that. Me on the opposite. I mean, it couldn't be worse. It's completely the wrong way around. So no, I need to take after you on that one. Wheelsy, thank you very much. A pleasure to have you on. Dustin, thank you very much for joining us. I assume, as always, 3 a.m. in Singapore. How are you doing? Thank you.
It's 3 a.m. Not been going that well. My daughter's got chronic pain, so she's been in hospital over the past week. But, she's looked at me and saying, "Do you want my painkillers?"
Love that. Firstly, though, sorry to hear about that and I hope that she gets better, but really do appreciate your commitment and coming on here. And for any of us, myself included, us Spurs fans think, oh my goodness, we're hard done by at the moment. What we got to part with? Dustin getting up at 3 a.m. to talk about Tottenham, similar times as well to watch us as well sometimes. So absolutely incredible. Dustin, thank you very much. Talking of commitment, Mike, you're joining us from Australia. Tell people what time it is there. Thank you very much for coming on.
Don't think anyone's ever opened with speaking of commitment. Here's Mike, but great to be here. Look, I think Dustin's doing far better with the early wake up. I'd love some painkillers if you have any left, Dustin. But yeah, I'm here for the therapy, boys. I mean, it's sort of like getting together before a funeral or something when you talk about Tottenham these days. But hopefully we can turn it around and talk about some of the things that are good to come. Apparently we're going to win the Champions League. That's what I'm hearing. So there's something to be excited about.
Love that. And what time is it there for you?
It's a very sociable 6 a.m. right now. So, Yeah, doing
That's
well.
better.
Thank
That's
you. Got me coffee. So. Oh, good.
Absolutely. Coffee, absolutely. That gets you through. Love it. Thank you very, very much. And Philip, thank you for coming on. How are you doing?
Yeah, I won't lie. It's been a long week, and my sleep schedule hasn't been existing at all, really, because I've been, rather than getting up at 3 a.m., I've been kind of falling asleep at 3 a.m. I think most nights, just because of the Spurs worries. On top of all of our, usual kind of life, challenges, which obviously, everyone has in their own ways, So, it's been a long week, and obviously looking for a bit of good conversation and a bit of therapy, trying to maybe focus on some of the positives. I'm sure there is some somewhere. And look, I mean, the fact is that, every game now until the rest of the season is almost like the biggest game in our recent history, and this Fulham game on the weekend is going to be very, very tough. And, I think it's going to show a lot of fans and show us, what's the team about? Is there any backbone left in the team? And can Igor Tudor get something out of these players, and we'll just have to wait and see, won't we?
Exactly that. Fingers crossed he'll be able to. And of course, I'm hosting a podcast as always, Harry Scarfe. Very proud to win Britain's Best Young Football Content Creator in 2025, and also the channel winning multiple awards as well. So thank you very much for putting your trust in me and for putting your trust in us to deliver for you. And good example of what we're about. 4 guests on today from 4 different countries. Spurs fans getting the thoughts worldwide. Let's get straight into it and waste no time. It goes without saying, I do not want to speak about the North London derby in any great detail. But the reality is it was Tudor's first game. So very, very briefly, I want to look back on that and see how we feel now the dust has settled. I imagine it is still painful. Mike, can I start with you? Tough start for Tudor, it'd be fair to say. What can he look back on and go, look, we don't want that to happen again. What can he learn from that, going into this Fulham game?
In short, not much, Harry. The first game, I think it was a shocking result. I watched it and I didn't take a whole lot away from it. I think that This game, he will go for a more stable sort of shape and structure away. I think there needs to be far more, obviously, attacking football will be good, more possession, more hold up. I think what I will say is you couldn't have a worse first game to walk into as a new manager. I think Arsenal are probably, it's awful to say, but are probably one of the top teams in the world right now. And we are one of the worst teams in the Premier League, and probably being compared at the moment to like a mid-table championship team the way we're playing. So look, not a whole lot you can learn from a result like that. I think it could have been worse. It could have been a bit better. What can you say? Would you be happy with a 3-2 loss or something? I don't know. So I'm looking with great positivity to see whether, as Phil says, we can show something in a more relevant game that's probably a bit more to our winning capability in Fulham away. See how the lads travel. They do like to travel, and we'll see what happens.
Okay, Mike, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Dustin, in that North London derby, was there any sign of improvement for you from what we've seen under Thomas Frank? Do we see any more aggression? Do you think we're a little bit better in that first half? Anything that you looked at and thought, okay, we need to improve, don't get me wrong, but this is a small positive to take out of it?
I don't think there was much that there was possible to improve from, primarily because when you have 13 fit players, a big part of it, and you're playing so many of them out of our position. You're playing Paulinho, you're playing Paulinho as a right centre back. You're playing Spence has played left wing back, but honestly, do any of us think that that's his best position? Archie Gray's playing right wing back. So you've got at least 3 players playing out of position. You've got an entire team that's short on confidence. So I think that the bones, we're basically playing with the bare bones, and but thank God we didn't panic in the winter transfer window, right? I don't think there was much to learn in terms of like what the squad could do. I think that if there is anything that you can say from that, is that there is potential in the reintegration of Bissouma, because Bissouma was a character that we had given up for lost. And even though he didn't play well entirely, there were parts in the first half of the game where Bissouma and Van de Ven were leading the press, and you saw them pressing very high there. I think the main problem with that was the level of analysis in the Premier League, because most Premier League teams have the resources to have like very, very large teams of analysts. So you can have a strategy that might work well in the first half, but it's very rare that it will work well in the second half, because that's when all the analysts have briefs. They give it to the coach, and the coach goes, okay, this is how the team was attacking us. These are the countermeasures that we have. And I think that was probably one of the things that Tudor may have had to adapt to, which was that, and Frank we found it so hard under Frank to have 2 consecutive good halves in a row, because there are analysts that look at that and go, okay, Tottenham was doing this is how you counter it. So Van de Ven was pressing very high in the first half. Sometimes you'd be all the way up in like the left wing position. And what I noticed was Arsenal was baiting him more and more for him to press out of position, because he was meant to have that.
I think we've lost you there, Dustin.
Sorry. Yep.
It's right, you come back. We can hear you.
Yeah. So I think what I noticed was that Arsenal was kind of poking and prodding to see what Tudor's strategy would be. And one big part I saw was that they were baiting Van de Ven up to press them so that they could exploit the space behind him. And the other part that I noticed was we were not very good at picking up the far post Arsenal player. So they were doing that a lot as well, and trying to bait us into one side of the pitch and then trying to switch it very quickly to the other side to exploit that space. So I knew that they were already starting to do that in the first half. I anticipated that in the second half they were going to exploit that a lot more.
Okay, thank you very much. We did lose you for a small part, but again, I could absolutely get what you're saying. And an important part, I think you also said there nearer the start, is that we only had 13 fit senior players. And of course, we have to point fingers at how we have this situation. If you don't have an opportunity to address it, you get players injured, it happens. Sometimes you're unlucky, I get it. But the whole point of a January window is to strengthen, not get worse and weaken both on the pitch and off the pitch. So that for me is a big issue. So that leads me on to my next thing.
We had two long-term injuries during the window as well, right? So even if we had plans or we didn't plan to get any one in the January window, when we had two more long-term injuries that happened during that window, surely your plans had to change rather than patting yourself on the back saying, "Oh, we didn't panic buy."
Yeah, no, exactly. No, you're spot on. And if I'm honest with you, I sat there and last night quite late, and I thought, do you know what? I'm really annoyed about a situation. So I took to X. I read out the following post because I'll get people's thoughts. I put Johan Lang is out of his depth. I wouldn't trust him with my car keys. For context, I don't even drive, let alone recruitment at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. You should do the decent thing and resign. Of course, that is very strong. But Philip, I come to you. The point is, Johan Lang, is it got to the point now where he is stealing the wage? Villa fans celebrated, not quietly either, when he left the club. The recruitment, I would argue, tell me if you disagree, has got a lot better since he's left. Not in terms of the money spent, but where it's been spent. I'm not saying the big players didn't come in while he was there, but also a lot went wrong for Villa during that time. Not perfect, but a lot better. Give me your thoughts on Johan Lang. Do you put it solely down to him? He's in charge of recruitment, and I just listen to him when he speaks to the media. I don't think I don't think he has any idea what he's talking about. I think he's out of his depth.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think he is out of his depth. I also think that he's in the wrong role, though. Like it's very easy to be anti, Johan Langer and kind of, criticize and stuff, and rightly so, because of the results, right, which have either been non-existent or questionable in terms of what we have or what we haven't managed to get over the line. I think that Johan Langer can be or has been a very good youth, kind of like young talent scout, essentially, and someone who has a track record even in his career so far of getting in, up and coming younger talent and actually trying to build a pathway for them, to the first team wherever he's been. And I think genuinely he's got a good network there, and he can do a good job. I think, and unless if someone can correct me, he has brought in some very good younger players and managed to kind of seal the deal. Lucas Bergvall being one of them as an example, and I think that he was quite integral, in that deal happening. So I think that he does deserve some credit where it's due, for some of the things that he's done. But the reality is he's not a sporting director for me at all in terms of what a sporting director should be, neither in the profile of what that sporting director is, either in terms of experience, in terms of network, and also in terms of gravitas, in terms of his responsibility. He comes across to me like a glorified scout, and that's not a sporting director. And the problem is he's in the wrong role. Now, so I don't feel bad for Johan Lang because obviously he earns a lot of money and he's been, hired into that role when he joined the club. He obviously came in, to a different position. We've had the Fabio Paratici drama of, Fabio kind of hanging around in the background since leaving the club, being a consultant, to the club, right? He's been a freelancer essentially, right? He had quite a close relationship to Daniel Levy. I have to anyways criticize the whole Paratici saga anyways, because I think that in itself has been an absolute, I'm trying to think of a word without swearing, show for the club. The fact that he left, the fact that he kind of essentially got convicted in Italy, you can argue whether it was a criminal conviction or not, but he was still convicted, right, by a court, and he still delivered services in the background. And then someone decided to bring him back permanently for him then to leave, and then for him to also, do this dual role with Johan Lang, right? This whole situation in the background has been absolutely amateur and terrible. And I do feel a tiny bit sorry then for Johan Lang as well. But I do agree with you in terms of the role that he's been in or been responsible for. And even if we just look at the January window, right, or last summer, because of course, last summer he was our sporting director solely. Fabio Paratici wasn't back in time. He may have been advising in the background, but Johan was there and he was our sporting director. And in the summer, we screwed up the Eze deal. We screwed up the Morgan Gibbs-White deal, regardless of whether, you know, he was persuaded or forced to stay there, right? And not, and we still don't know the full story. I know his fiance or his wife or his partner, you know, had some pregnancy issues and stuff as well. So it sounds like it was a complicated setup, but still, I believe we could have got that Morgan Gibbs-White transfer done if we had approached it in a different way. And there was also the problem with the fee, you know, us bidding exactly the same amount, right, for him. Now, that to me falls under the responsibility of the sporting director and not Daniel Levy, in my opinion. So, yes, I agree. And the fact is that Johan Lange, whenever he's been in that role, he hasn't been successful enough. And again, if we just look at last summer and now at the January transfer window, it's way, way, way below, over par. You know, it's just not acceptable. And he to then come out and do those interviews. Look, maybe he was forced to give those interviews
and not say
as well.
sorry.
We
That's
don't
what
know.
I just add. He didn't say sorry. And for me, if I was in the club's position, I'd go, sorry, we didn't do enough in January for various reasons. Blame all excuse you want, but I didn't hear the word sorry. I didn't hear any form of accountability, because that
Sorry, Harry,
suggests to me that they think they're happy.
You expecting Lange to apologise for the transfer window?
I think someone from the club has to come out and go,
I think it has to be Vinay. I mean, I think,
absolutely.
You know,
he's the one who gives sweet talk.
Yeah, I mean, to all your points, I mean, I don't think anyone at Tottenham could direct themselves out of a shoebox. To be fair, that past transfer window is an absolute fiasco, and to have the optics of Paratici as this sort of floating consultant who's kind of got one foot already in the door at Fiorentina, one, you know, half a foot it's still in the door at Tottenham, but not really doing much. With the injury toll that we had, and then they released this sort of very quiet video afterwards where they just talk about, you know, some of the positives in the window. I mean, it was embarrassing as a fan, and I think again it's an example not just of poor leadership individually, but across the board, for no senior leader to come out and actually address it properly to the fans. Like, I think it should have been the CEO, to be fair. Was completely pathetic.
Can I just say one more thing? And I agree with you, Mike,
okay.
on that as well. Like, for me, it all comes from the CEO, from Vinay, and Vinay is more at fault. The only other thing I would say on it is, again, I don't rate Johan in terms of him being a sporting director, and he shouldn't be in that role. As I said, I think he could be. I think he can be a good talent spotter for the youth, you know, and he could do this mini youth manager thing, right? He's proven himself there, but he's not a sporting director. But number two, we don't know exactly in the January window what he was told or what he was restricted by. Because at the end of the day, right, I know he came out and he said that thing. He gave that interview. Were those really his words, or was it the words of the club and of Vinay and of Enoch? And I think, honestly, he was forced to say what he said. There's no way. If he'd come out and
100%.
said sorry, it would not have. Yeah, I would have liked him to say sorry, but Vinay and probably the board and Enoch and stuff, they would have told him or forced him to give a very specific statement on the January window. And like, we don't know whether Johan and his team, because it's not just Johan, is it? There is a team of like 10 other people underneath him, right, who are scouting, who are even talking to agents, right? It's not just Johan doing everything. We don't know whether he lined up some loans, you know, and they were blocked by Vinay and by the board, right, because of the situation with the manager or with the money available to us. And it's their fault anyways with the manager, right, because they didn't act in time. So, yeah, look, I am rambling on as always now, but I'm just going to say on it, Johan Lange is not a very good sporting director, but there is a lot more moving parts in the background. Who now, when you see what happened in January, also with the Brennan Johnson transfer, selling him at the beginning of the window and then not getting him replacements, not getting in any backup, the whole Andy Robertson thing, you know, yeah, I don't think he's probably the best negotiator. He doesn't seem to be the most inspiring guy either. But I believe, looking back now, all of the information that Vinay and Enoch, from a leadership perspective and from a money budgeting perspective above, have probably tied a lot of people's hands. And they've been sticking with Thomas Frank that whole time. And they were like towing this line saying, you know, we're going to stick with Frank. We're somehow going to get to the summer, yeah, and then we're going to like make a decision again, and then we will try and go big.
But there was never a plan B. There was never a plan B if Frank didn't work.
There was never a plan B, and they should have anyways in November or in December. Even when Fabio came into the club, Paratici, right, and he came in November, October, they should have had a very clear list. This is who we want. This is who we need. And by the way, the injuries have come on top, so it needs to be doubly done. And none of them did anything. And again, it's very easy to get on Johann's back, and I'm on his back as well. But I think there has to be an even deeper microscope on Vinay and on the board. And in my opinion, this all goes back to Vinay, and it all goes back to Enoch. That's the reality.
Right. Yeah.
That's the reality.
Absolutely.
And, you know, the only other thing to say is if Paratici had been there in January normally and Johann wasn't there, do we think that we would have magically signed another 3 or 4 players just because Fabio was there, because he's got a better network? I'm not convinced about that, in all honesty. I think it's all Enoch and it's all Vinay. But it doesn't change the fact that Johann should leave the club, in my opinion. And, you know, and we need to hire a proper sporting director who has respect, who has gravitas, who understands the game, and who can actually build that structure or rebuild the structure, because that's what we need. That's what we're missing.
Okay, thank you very much. Do appreciate that. Fabio Paratici at the time when he joined Fiorentina were bottom, so at the table. So if he views them as a more attractive prospect than Tottenham, just how attractive is Tottenham right now is a genuine question to be put forward. But Wheelsy, coming to you before we move on from this whole topic, Johan Lang spent 12 and a half minutes talking about Conor Gallagher, of course, because he's our only signing of the window. I don't think personally he's worthy of that much discussion. But he's in the topic right now in terms of, was he right to sign? Was he not? What have you made to his start to life at Spurs? Because it comes across quite slow. It just feels like not the player we needed. And we're paying him, apparently, according to reports, 200 grand a week. So we've broken our outdated wage structure to give Gallagher this kind of money. I mean, the amount of players that we could have brought in to give this kind of money, and it's Conor Gallagher. Yeah, go through it all, whatever you want to talk about with that.
200 grand on a wage bill a week is outrageous for any player. But Conor Gallagher, for someone who was captain at Chelsea, then got sent to another country, he didn't really prove himself in Spain even. To be brought to Spurs and to be given a 200 grand a week wage bill is outrageous. It just shows that the club is rotten from bottom to top. Like, there's no direction at the minute, and if we keep giving players wage bills like that, then it just shows that the club is just going to go into regression, as it's clearly showing on the pitch with results and stuff. But no, I wouldn't say that Conor Gallagher is worth the 200 grand a week. I know he provided the assist for Solanke's scorpion kick against City, but other than that, I don't really see where he's done much for the club. So it's a bit of a mixed bag for me, but personally, I don't think he was the right signing for us to make.
Wheelsy, thank you very much. Dustin, I think we have you back. Conor Gallagher, waste of money for you, do you think?
Yeah. Hello? Yeah.
Yeah, it's right.
I think with
Conor Gallagher.
Yeah, I think with Conor Gallagher, like, you know, what I've always brought up was that he was the wrong profile because we have 4 of the same kind of player already. I think a bigger part of it is that when you bring people in to break your wage structure, I've always said that breaking a wage structure is something that needs to be done in a very considered way. Because if you think about it, if you work at a company and you know that the new hire has come in and he's paid more than everyone else, you're all looking at him going, what have you done to earn that amount of money? So I think that whenever you break the wage structure, you shouldn't start necessarily by making the new person to the club who has done nothing for the club so far the top wage earner. You should start by signing all your best players to new contracts that elevate them to the new top of the wage structure, and then whoever you bring in matches that wage structure. Now, it's not to say that you give people wages that they don't deserve, but you know, it creates a lot of dissent within the club if everyone's looking at the new boy going, what have you done to deserve more than me? When I've been here, I've won the Europa League for them and all those kinds of things. So I think that it doesn't engender good dressing room conditions when you do something like that. So I feel that we always needed to increase the wage structure because that comes closest to where you place in the league. But there's a stepwise way of doing it that doesn't create squad disharmony.
Okay, interesting point. I like what you said as well there about current Spurs players. I'm in particular thinking Romero, Van der Ven, how annoyed they must be right now already. I think, not happy. And then on top of this, I found out, Gallagher's getting paid more than me. But Wheelsy, I will come to you because just quickly on the Champions League, Tottenham will face either Atletico Madrid or Galatasaray in the round of 16 in the UEFA Champions League. The draw takes place on Friday. We will host the second leg. And people didn't see Galatasaray and Juventus, absolutely crazy game. Honestly, had everything to it. Juventus winning 3-2 on the night, but in the end, Galatasaray 7-5 in aggregate. But Galatasaray, were forced to go to extra time. Juventus were 3-0 up at one point. So that's a crazy game. But out of Atletico Madrid or Galatasaray, Wheelsy, who would you prefer?
Sorry, I didn't realise I was on mute. The draw for us could have been easier, but it could have been worse as well. But honestly, out of Madrid and Galatasaray, it's 50-50. Like, how we've been playing in the Premier League. We could either turn up and be like one of the best teams in Europe, or just play like we have been in the Premier League and be absolutely abysmal. But out of the two, I think I'd rather us face Atletico Madrid because the Turkish teams can be very hostile in terms of like the fans and how they play on the pitch with aggression. So out of the two, I think I'd prefer Atletico Madrid.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate that, Mike. What do you reckon out of the two that you'd want to face more than the other?
Neither, ideally. But if we had to choose, probably Atletico. I mean, we seem to play well when it's not in the Premier League, so I guess we're a chance there. But yeah, I mean, look, it's quite funny. I saw last night all the interesting posts dropping about how I think there's 6 Premier League teams that have made it to the final 16, and I thought, welcome to all the other illustriously talented clubs to join us in the final 16. We've been waiting for you. So no, it was a funny sort of moment, but hopefully we can do something in Europe, and I'd love us to progress in any meaningful way in some competition this year because. I found myself yesterday at a conference talking to a Leeds fan about how good it's going to be in being back in the Championship next year. So that was a bit strange. But we'll see, mate. We'll see. You never know with Tottenham.
Exactly, and I go live on TikTok and do things like that. The amount of people that go looking forward to playing Bristol, looking forward to playing Millwall, and all these teams they go through and right down to the bottom of the Championship. I think, goodness me, it's not good. You can sling in a joke when it comes to Millwall. You can go, I look forward to playing them in the Premier League, but that starts to run out of its power when you get to the likes of Huddersfield. You go to all the teams down the bottom. You think, hang on a minute, this runs out of leverage. Or even people suggesting League One clubs, and I'm thinking, goodness me, this is not good.
We'll be there for a cold, rainy night in Stoke. Believe me.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Oh, not a good look at the moment. But before we get to Fulham then, bit of breaking news in the last couple of hours. So according to Sky, Mickey van der Ven is said to be an awful long way off, that exact wording, an awful long way off signing a new contract at Tottenham Hotspur. He's understood that contract talks are not taking place at all at the moment. Philip, concerning to an extent for you. Of course, it is important to note that both Van der Ven and Romero are down to decently long contracts. So compared to the rest of our players, they're very long contracts. So no immediate concern about losing him now, but he seems to be a little bit unhappy. The more you read, the more you see as well of Van der Ven.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised, but I assume when he went on the overlap, whenever it was, I can't remember if it was in December or in January or whenever, beginning with his dad. It was quite clear to me that it came across to me like he was putting himself in the shop window a bit. And I'm not really that convinced that he's particularly committed to us at the moment. He's going to be playing in the World Cup in the summer. He's won a trophy with us, Europa League. And I think that he is going to maybe not push hardcore for a transfer in the summer, but we know that there's teams interested in him concretely, including the likes of Liverpool, Real Madrid, apparently, Bayern supposedly are interested. And I can see can see him leaving in the summer, if I'm being honest. I think, well, obviously, would get a very high fee for him. And how do I feel about him or that? Well, I've always loved Mickey. I think I like the way he plays football, obviously, you know, like his kind of swashbuckling pace, obviously getting himself out of danger. A bit like Carl Walker from the old days, you know, he always used to kind of stand. He knew he could stand, not out of position, but he could, you know, go into attacking positions, but he always knew he could rescue it, right, with his pace. And with Mickey, it's the same. Nevertheless, and, you know, I might have to put my tin helmet on for this, but I actually have to question a bit whether Mickey is really that good of a centre back, like a defender. You know, I think the thing about Mickey, and look, pace is very important in the modern game. You know, if you haven't got pace, then, you know, what do you have? You know, his pace is his cash, right? Is his value. You know, like he offers something different. And my concern with him is, like, if he always, I don't know, I just have the feeling if he gets one more like bad hamstring injury, you know, because of, you know, how he is, or because of having to kind of rescue situations or go forward or whatever else, then, you know, it could put him in a different situation injury wise. And, you know, if he loses his pace or even an element of his pace, then I don't think he's good enough as a centre back from a pure defender perspective to make up for that. And again, you know, a lot of fans might, you know, get on my back for saying that, but I honestly think that there is quite a lot of centre backs that are better than Mickey van der Ven in certain systems. And
Where does he
look,
rank
Mickey
then
was
for you? You know, I'm going to ask you about that. Where does he rank in terms of the best centre backs? Because he's often, Romero's mainly been in that conversation, but also if you can talk about Romero and Van der Ven and the gap between them in quality,
Well,
how do you see that?
Well, look, we've been on Romero's back a bit as well, haven't we, this season? You know, obviously for disciplinary issues, you know, rightly so. But I think that Romero is a massively better defender than Mickey van der Ven from a pure, you know, kind of management of the box perspective. You know, organising the defence. You know, Romero's progressive play coming forwards and passing is frankly significantly better than Mickey's, but he doesn't have the pace that Mickey has, you know. So actually they have, you know, equalized itself quite well in that system. Mickey, I thought, under Ange in that very, very high line, you know, the Ange ball thing, Mickey actually worked really well in that, right? Because he knew that he could obviously play high and rescue. But, you know, and I think, you know, and I honestly don't want to talk about, you know, that lot down the road, you know, in South London. But if I've got to be honest, if I've got to really be honest, I think that both of their centre backs are better than Mickey van der Ven you know, in a structure and from a leadership perspective. So look, I really, really love Mickey just because of how he's been for us and how he is, and again, that swashbuckling style. But I also honestly don't think it will be the end of the world if we moved him on and we got an extremely high fee for him, but only if we reinvest it into the team, right? As always, you know, there's no point getting 70 or 80 million for him. And the same would apply to Christian Romero as well if we don't invest it in the right way. But, you know, I've thought about this quite a lot over the last few days, and like, I was also kind of saying, well, look, let's get rid of Romero in the summer if he's not committed. You know, if he wants to move his family to Spain, which he probably will at some point. But I would much rather keep Romero than Mickey van der Ven if I had the choice. If it was one or the other, I would keep Christian Romero, and I would move on Mickey, get a big fee for him, you know, while we still can and while he still has that full value. Because as I said, I would be a bit worried about his injuries moving forward, possibly. But that's just my view on it, right? A lot of fans won't agree with me on that, you know. But if I really, really analyze him, I think that there's a lot of his game that he still needs to work on. If I'm being honest, he's not like the complete and ready defender, in my opinion. You know, who he just slots in anywhere. And he, you know, he's kind of like, what's the word? Unbreakable, or, you know, not passable. But there'll be a lot of fans that won't agree with me on that, to be honest with you. But you know, I know that we've got Vuskovic coming probably next summer. I know he's right-footed. He probably plays more on the right-hand side, the same as Romero. But there is options out there on the market. Left footers. But anyway, shoot me down, everyone. Attack me now. But that's my feeling on Mickey over the last couple of months. And anyways, look, I don't have the feeling that he's particularly committed to us at the moment. So I don't know. But again, when you're in a team which isn't performing well, and when you're losing the vast majority of your games, including last season, take the trophy away that we won. We've lost 40 something games in the last, or 38 games or something in the last 2 seasons. It's easy as a player not to feel that positive, right, and lose your confidence as well. And when you've got your agent calling you and saying, "Oh, look, Real have just asked me again, what's going on?" Bayern, they want to move on Upamecano, things like this. It's not easy, right? Players get their heads turned, and the fact is that Mickey would probably double his wages somewhere else, potentially, if he went somewhere like that. So you've got to look at it from both sides nowadays, unfortunately.
It's a good shout. I think it'd be so Tottenham as well to sell at least one, if not both, of our centre backs and go, yeah, Vuskovic is coming in, who, don't get it wrong, we all like, and so no need to sign anyone else. And you're Kevin Dancer who can do a job, and you just see it. That we've got 3 good centre backs, that kind of, they drag us in as well, and we won't end up signing anybody at all. And when I talk about squad retracting,
we'd end up recalling Ashley Phillips and put him in there as one of the squad players or something, or whoever, Ryan Nelson. I mean, look, we laugh about it, but it's the truth, isn't it? Until the board shows
centre backs leave. We're going to have centre backs leave. Whoever it is, the club will view it as too many when Vuskovic comes back, when Phillips comes back, when Dorrington comes back. They'll look at it and go, that's far too many to have. And I don't think it'll just be loans this time, be permanently. And it might be, especially a couple of younger ones I mentioned there, they go, okay, we've got to go. But I think personally, at least one of Romero and Van der Ven go. I wouldn't be surprised. I think it'd be a lot to let them both go. Maybe one this year, one next year. Again, it's probably not what we want, but it's probably what will likely to happen. A lot of teams will look for centre backs in the summer, I think.
The only other thing, just very quickly as well, though, is that when it comes to the club talking with the agents of those players and actually maybe talking to them about the future, what are we going to do? The players and the agents will have zero confidence in us as a club, right? So even if we go,
I don't think Dragson's agent does. I think his agent has no confidence in Tottenham. Let me tell you that.
If we went to them and said, "Oh, Poch is coming back," right? Just as an example, we'll already tell you that Poch is coming back. And here is the 250 million that we're going to invest in the squad.
Yeah.
And we might give you a pay increase as well to bring you the thing. That could be a way of getting them maybe to stay, and obviously if we stay up. But do they believe what the club is saying? Why should anyone believe this board? That's the problem as well that we have at the moment. How can we persuade or negotiate with players that we have that might have offers out there to keep them in the club? Why should they stay? Why should they stay at Tottenham at the moment? It's not a happy place to be, is it? And it's not
good luck.
So I don't know. It's going to be interesting.
Will be interesting. Before we do get on to Fulham, then I want to ask one more of you about it. Dustin, I'm going to ask you. There's lots to get into there in terms of comparison with Arsenal centre backs. By all means, do touch on that. But talk to me, Van der Ven, Romero. Are you worried about losing one, if not both, very soon? I know they're both on long contracts.
So I think realistically, we are likely to lose either one or the other. And I'll caveat this by saying that Van der Ven is, generally speaking, a player that I would love. He would generally be my favorite player in the team because I love Dutch players. I love players that play against their type, being a tall player that's really, really fast. I love good ball carriers. But there are a number of things that he's done, and you can say, there's that video of him where Tudor is instructing him, and people saying that it's Dragusin, but it's become a pattern, right? He's blanked Frank early on in the season. He's gone on the overlap. He's gone and tried to claim credit for Ange changing to a more defensive system. So you can start to see that he's starting to try to position himself, and he has a very inflated opinion of himself. And some may say that that is deserved, but at the same time, he that is kind of a pattern of undermining the coaches, and that is not something that you should be seeing from the captain of your club. So from that perspective, I was a big fan of Van de Ven, but I'm getting a little bit off him right now because it feels like his opinion of himself and what he actually contributes, there's starting to be a bit of discrepancy. And I'll back up what Philip says. Van de Ven is an excellent defender in transition, which means that when a player is breaking free, he's racing towards goal. Van de Ven's sliding tackles are perfectly timed. Steal the ball, doesn't foul the player. Those are great. So he's a good defender in transition. He's not a good box defender. So if we're already in the box and he is not sprinting to recover a position and he's in a solid static block trying to keep the defender out, that's actually when he kind of gets his pants taken down. He's been embarrassed by Alexander Isak, for a few games in a row already. So he's not a perfect defender by any means. And for all of Romero's faults, from a disciplinary perspective. He always puts a shift in. He's a great ball playing centre back. He chips in with goals. He's a much stronger header of the ball. So between the two of them, I'd say that Romero is contributes a lot more. And you can say what you want about him and his disciplinary record as a captain. Sergio Ramos got sent off a lot as well, but no one disputes that he's one of the greatest captains that Real Madrid has ever seen. So I think that with Romero, you have to take the good with the bad. Part of him playing on the edge means that he has that kind of intensity, but the intensity also comes from a winning mentality or not accepting the team playing this badly. Don't get me wrong, he has been very disappointing because we could use him for the 4 games he's out for, and he's on the edge of getting another suspension if he picks up more yellow cards. So I'm not saying that he's perfect either, but between the two of them right now, I feel that Romero would be up for a relegation fight, and I'm not sure Van de Ven is.
Interesting. There you go. That's a very good point. I personally agree with that. But we've got to move on now to Fulham because time is short. Mike, if I come to you very quickly on Fulham, who's the opposition, of course, we're going to, and I spoke about in the intro as well, tough record at Craven Cottage. But what have you made of Fulham this year? At the time of speaking, they're 10th in the Premier League table. Might be different at the time we get to the games. It's the last game on Sunday. But yeah, they're 10th in the Premier League. They won their last game, but it was 3 defeats before that. So in the last 5, it's 3 defeats and a couple of wins. So they've been a bit of a strange side, but generally speaking, in 2026, they've been a little bit better.
Yeah, I like Fulham. I think they got some game. I mean, I'm very upset, obviously, that Adama Traore is no longer there, so I can't look forward to him occasionally coming on in the 90th minute, all oiled up like a WWF wrestler from the 90s. But look, seeing Raul Jimenez, back in form, and Harry Wilson's obviously having a fantastic season. There's a lot to worry about, especially late in games. Whenever Harry Wilson's on the pitch or they've got Iwobi kind of like as an energizer bunny, it's concerning. I think they can win from different points in the game and different positions tactically in the game. So, yeah, I don't think this one be one to take lightly. I think if we can scrounge out a draw, I'll be very. I won't be happy because, frankly, it'd be great to see a win. Statistically, I must say, a win should happen at some point for Tottenham. It kind of has to. So, maybe this will be it. Maybe it'll be next week, but it's really got to come soon. And if not a win, you've got to really see a very stoic draw. So I expect them to line up very conservatively and to really try and compress the space, hopefully press well. And the key thing is going to be the mentality. So do the players like Van de Ven and he's not out there, but the other players have the concentration to really hold out for a full 90 minutes plus away from home against a team that's quite good at scrounging out results. So we'll see. We need to pick up a point.
Mike, thank you. And Wheelsy, Harry Wilson, would you say is a player to watch? I think he's one also that will be attracting a lot of interest in the summer if he hasn't already in terms of big clubs after him.
Yeah, I mean, when I think of Fulham, I immediately think of Harry Wilson. Like, he's been Fulham's best player this season by a country mile. So if he's on the score sheet, if he assists for that game, I won't be surprised in the slightest. I mean, we're approaching game week 28, which means we have 11 games left, and we have to play all of the 11 games like it's a cup final, and we've proven that we can win cup finals as shown last season. So I don't see where we would get 3 points looking at the current fixtures, but if we can get at least 1 point from Sunday's game, I'll be complacent.
Okay. Are you confident though, Wheelsy, or not really? I know that you've
Not at
said you
all.
think go
Not
down.
at all.
Yeah. Not
Not
confident
at
at
all.
all. It's not good. Okay, both Mike and Wheelsy giving their thoughts already into the game. So, Philip, I come to you. How are you feeling about this one? I know I totally appreciate that it's hard to feel confident right now as a Spurs fan, but a new manager, I know that we've lost the first game, but do you think we have a little bit of a chance against Fulham?
Well, we kind of like to hope, that we're going to turn up, into that game and start, playing, with passion and with energy from the first minute. I think it's going to be very difficult because, frankly, I think Fulham are a much better team than what we are. The manager's been there for several years. He's got an identity. He's got a settled team pretty much, but they play hard. They play with energy, and they do have some very good players. And Harry Wilson's having the season of his life and probably proving quite a few clubs wrong, right? I can't remember, but I'm not sure if he was the guy who started out at Liverpool or if he was at Liverpool, and he never really quite made it. But he's obviously kind of having a bit of a later bloom, in his career. But he's been so good this season, and he's available on a free, I think, in the summer. And of course, he's someone who normally I would say, well, let's have a look at him. But again, why would he join us like in the summer? Honestly, he's going to have other options out there, right, on the market. Unless we want to stay in London or something, But it's going to be tough. And I think the Fulham are going to press us hard. And, my biggest issue with Tottenham this season and even last season, really, but has been that when we come up against teams that press us and, really, harass us, we collapse. We got Thomas Frank didn't have an answer for it. Bournemouth, right at the beginning of the season, was the first game where it kind of all started looking a bit weird, Bournemouth completely dominated us. We looked so uncomfortable, and that's how Fulham will play against us. And unless if we approach that game with different energy levels, with the right tactics as well, up to a certain extent. But I think that the tactics are almost second measure at the moment. Second level. I think like it's all about the players getting their confidence in some shape or form back, and actually being confident and being able to pass the ball and run into space and obviously be disciplined, right? Because we always make mistakes. There's always one player letting the side down, not being in position or not doing things consistently. And that's my biggest problem about this game and also for the rest of the season. So I'd like to think we come out. I think we can. I think it's going to be very difficult to get a win there. And I would happily take a draw right now, and then try and obviously beat Palace at home, which I think will be an easier game if I'm being honest. But I'll take a draw. But I think that the chances are more likely, unfortunately, that we don't get anything out of that game. I think there's a good chance that we might lose, unfortunately. But
yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
thank you very much, Philip, for your thoughts there. Dustin, before we get to score prediction, can I get your thoughts on Tottenham's trip to Craven Cottage, a stadium that hasn't treated us too well? Put it this way, my first away day, I went there against Fulham and I was really happy. It was great. Got tickets in the press box and super excited. We lost 3-0 and we were absolutely awful.
I think based on the form and the way they played in their previous game and our form and how our players are starved of confidence. And I think the biggest problem we have right now is I don't think our players even know how to attack anymore, in the sense that we spent so long being a cross-spanning team and with very, very limited patterns of play and attack that our players don't even have the DNA to make quick interplay down the center and create chances anymore. That isn't a rehearsed play. So my concern is that I don't see how we create chances, and if we like we didn't have Solanke in the last game. So, hopefully if Solanke's back, maybe our chance creation doesn't need to be as good. But I think that the point remains that our chance creation this season has been horrific. And if we don't improve the chance creation, our stats for XG, our stats for chances created through balls all continue to be like among the worst in the league. So really, really find it difficult figuring out where the goals come from because we couldn't get our strikers to score goals. Kolomani seems to score goals only against teams that he used to play for, and somehow against Arsenal. But like Richarlison comes on as an agent of chaos. I just don't see where the goals are coming from, especially if Romero's out, and we're relying on him for headers to score a number of goals as well. The best I can see us getting out of this is a draw. I'm not sure if we score enough goals to get a win.
Okay. Thank you all giving your thoughts there. And also we talked about our thoughts on Fulham. Let's end then with score prediction. I want just your score prediction if that's okay. Nothing more because of time. So Dustin, I will kick it off with you. Score prediction for Sunday.
I think 1-1.
Okay, 1-1. Dustin, thank you. Mike? Do you reckon score prediction?
Yeah, mate. Sorry about that. Look, I think unfortunately 0-0 or 1-1. Either way, it's going to be pretty dry.
Okay, going for a draw. Always better than a defeat. Mike, thank you. Philip? Score prediction. You're on mute.
I think a 1-1 as well,
Okay.
to be honest. Yeah, 1-1.
Okay. Wheelsy, I'm relying on you not to predict us to lose, the only one.
I can never predict my team to lose, so I have to say 1-1.
Love it. 1-1. Okay, thank you. A lot of 1-1s, a lot of draws. That wraps us up nicely then. Thank you to everyone that's listened to this episode of the Scarfey Spurs podcast. Let's go through and see if you can find my guests on social media. Wheelsy, thank you as always for your time. For people who don't know, of course, you are my lead thumbnail designer. Very proud, very lucky to be able to say that. Where can people follow you on social media? Talk to people about everything you do for me, also for your own content creation, own Discord server. Go through it all.
Thank you for having me back on, mate. It's always a pleasure being on here. And you can find me at Alex Wheelsy on all platforms. I'm primarily on TikTok. You will see me on there spinning around doing donuts, as you do. Hopefully, I do some for Fulham. Who knows? But yeah, you can find me on Alex Wheelsy, and I also have my own little graphics business. I have a website called Wheelsy.org. You can find my portfolio on there where I do work for you for Spurs Kings TV, and if you contact me, we'll arrange something. But thank you for having me on, mate.
No worries, thank you. And of course, people go and join your Discord server as well, Everything Spurs. Wheelsy, thank you very, very much. Philip, thank you so much for coming on. Talk to people about what you do on social media and where they can find you, because you do a lot that you sometimes don't talk about.
Yeah, I mean, I'm mainly on X, really. I've not active on YouTube yet, but at Frankfurt Spurs. Yeah, I tweet mainly about Tottenham, but also about the Bundesliga and my German team, Frankfurt, here, because I live over here. I've lived over here for a while. Yeah, look, I'm involved with setting up and growing an official Tottenham Hotspur supporters club here in Germany as well, which is quite interesting. You know, we're winning more and more fans. Although if we keep playing like we are in the last 2 seasons, like in terms of league position, then we're gonna have to do some more marketing, I think, because it's hard to sell it after a while. But yeah, come and check me out anyway. I'm on some other pods as well nowadays. But it's always great to return to yours, Harry, and be on here as well. We always have great discussions as well, and kudos for continuing to grow the channel as well. And hopefully we have a good finish to the season. We stay up. That's it.
Fingers crossed. We hope so. That's what we all want. Thank you very much. Dustin, thank you as always. Talk to people what you do on social media and where they can follow you and your fantastic analysis.
You can find me on X at Luminoir, LUMINOIR, Camry Spurs, COYS. I also have a ongoing series on Chris Carlin's channel, which is Talking Tottenham Tactics, where I break down tactical overviews. I don't do match breakdowns right now, but what I'm doing is I'm doing a video soon, which is covering the structure of the club, how clubs start doing well, and how it's not just the manager, it's the owner, it's the board, it's director of football, and things like that. And what I'm going to try to do is start building a case for what brings a club long-term success and stability, and try to use other clubs as test cases to show what are the kinds of things and structures that we need to put in place so that Spurs can start becoming a more stable club that doesn't vacillate from manager to manager and go through these problems of transition whenever we switch the manager, and having some a foundation that we can build from that doesn't change every 18 months.
Dustin, thank you. It sounds fantastic. I mean, if you weren't going to be Tottenham manager for whatever reason, I'd have you over Johan Langer, over Vinay, anyone in that board, Enoch and the Lewis family as well. They haven't got a clue what they're doing, if you ask me. And you certainly know what you're talking about. So thank you very much. That's why you're on here, and that's why they'll never be allowed on there, even if they were interested. Mike, thank you very much for your time. As always, do appreciate it. And, of course, along with Dustin, it's the morning for you both. So I hope you all have a good rest of your day. But where can people follow you on the socials? Again, thank you.
Yeah, pleasure. It's always lovely to be here with you, lads. I just love, honestly, talking to other Spurs fans and having the opportunity. Being in Oz, probably like Dustin a bit in Singapore, sometimes a bit isolating, but it's great to be able to mourn together collectively. So, yeah, I'm at MikeDev84. That's my handle on the front of the box. And, yeah, come check us out. I don't tweet too much, but always happy to talk and contribute on Spurs content.
Great stuff. Thank you all for your time. Come back for the next episode of the Scarfey Spurs podcast. Will be on Monday to review that. Hopefully, I'm going to say the win over Fulham. But for now, thank you. Come on, you Spurs.